From the Caribbean News Desk, the morning edition. Good morning. I'm Kendol Morgan.
And I'm Denis Chabrol with the latest from across the Caribbean.
The Bahamas Prime Minister Philip Davis says every effort will be made to restore public trust in the police and defense force in the wake of the United States indictment of 11 Bahamians for importing cocaine and guns. Two of them, Chief Superintendent Elvis Curtis, was in charge of the Airport Division, and Defense Force Chief Petty Officer Darren Roker were arrested in Florida on Monday. The indictment alleges that since 2021, tons of cocaine were imported into the Bahamas for shipment to the United States. In a statement to the Bahamas Parliament yesterday, Prime Minister Davis vowed that tough action will be taken against those who betray the trust of Bahamians. He says new legislation will be passed to allow for greater oversight.
Before our Christmas break, I'll bring to Parliament new legislation aimed at strengthening the oversight of the conduct and operations of our law enforcement agencies. This legislation will ensure that no individual or institution is above accountability. It will provide mechanisms to prevent corruption, establish clear checks and balances, and empower independent bodies to investigate and act when breaches occur.
The Bahamas' Prime Minister Philip Davis says his government is working with United States authorities to identify a high-ranking Bahamian politician implicated in facilitating the transshipment of cocaine to the U.S. The politician was reportedly named by a senior Bahamian police officer. In his statement to the Bahamian Parliament yesterday, Prime Minister Davis says his government intends to find the answers about this major betrayal.
To that end, I've directed the Minister of Foreign Affairs to issue a diplomatic note requesting further details about allegations involving a high-ranking Bahamian politician. Such allegations demand thorough investigation, and no stone will be left unturned in seeking the truth. To clarify, the indictment states, and I quote, the defendant said that in exchange for $2 million US, a high-ranking Bahamian politician who was named would authorize the assistance. We need to know who and the details of the allegation.
Meanwhile, the Opposition Free National Movement, FNM, has called for a commission of inquiry and the resignation of the country's National Security Minister. FNM Chairman Dr. Dwayne Sands.
A horrible moment for our country. There's clearly a crisis of confidence that goes all the way up to the Commissioner, to the Minister of National Security, to the Prime Minister, to the Cabinet. I think the Prime Minister needs to give us a full-throated, fulsome explanation of why on their watch they have allowed the reputation of the Bahamas to sink to such a low.
And opposition leader Michael Pinter has called for urgent efforts to restore Bahamians' confidence in their security services.
I mean, it has to start at the top. There has to be an attempt to restore the trust of the Bahamian people, that if I call law enforcement or I call a policymaker, I can trust that they are going to hold the information confidentially and use it.
The British overseas territories in the Caribbean have told London it must include them in any funding it provides to CARICOM and the OECS. The premiers of Anguilla, Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, Montserrat, and the Turks and Caicos Islands complained about their exclusion from regional funding programs during their recent annual meetings with UK government representatives in London. Montserrat's Premier Ruben Meade.
When the UK gives money to CARICOM or OECS, for example, the overseas territories are excluded. We made a representation that no UK overseas territory who is a member or associate member of any of these institutions should be excluded from funding provided to those institutions. So that is being taken on board.
The 6 British overseas territories in the Caribbean are either full or associate members of the Caribbean Community CARICOM or the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States OECS.
Executive and Central Committee member of Guyana's ruling People's Progressive Party PPP, Anil Nandlal, is downplaying the likelihood of any fallout from accusations by Melissa Melimel Atwell. The New York-based social media anti-government activist has alleged on Facebook that he shared confidential information with her about a number of high-ranking government officials and matters. Mr. Nandlal is regarded as a potential PPP presidential candidate for the 2030 general elections. Maintaining that he does not or has never communicated with Ms. Atwell, Mr. Nandlal, who is Ghana's Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, said he was not concerned about his political future as a result of her claims.
No, not at all, not at all. It's absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It has no credibility, and I challenge her and anyone else to prove me wrong.
This has been the morning edition from the Caribbean News Desk. You may contact us by phone or WhatsApp at +592 700 9293. Thanks for listening.